switch it in time. Won't turn on. Must be broken now. Great. Well, I was planning on playing Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but we'll have to save that for another time. Let's see what else we have here. The Goonies 2 on NES. Now, this is not Goonies 2 the movie, because the movie The Goonies was released in 1985, and there wasn't a sequel to that movie. So, The Goonies 2 is the second part of The Goonies 1 for NES. Yes, there was a Goonies 1 on the NES as well. Now, I've never played either one of them, and I also have not seen the movie The Goonies either, so we'll be coming at this one completely new. Let's pop this crud muffin in and see how it plays. Not again. And there we go. Let's play some Goonies. The Goonies 2. Now let me start off by saying that this game was developed and published by Konami. Konami began making games for the NES in the mid-1980s, and is still developing games to this day. They are well known for their titles such as Castlevania, Dance Dance Revolution, and Frogger, to name a few. Now I'm not going to say that any of these games are wholesome in any way, because many I would say are not. But as far as making a game that plays and controls well and is fun, they have proven themselves time and time again and have cemented for themselves a place in video game history. So with that knowledge, we should be able to expect a good game here. In this sequel to the Goonies 1, which only came out for the Famicom initially in Japan, you play as Mikey. His friends, the Goonies, have been kidnapped by the Fratellis, an Italian family of small-town crooks. Mikey must rescue all 6 of the Goonies and a mermaid called Annie. So right away I noticed you actually have a life meter and inventory full of items and equipment you must collect. There's even an on-screen map. I have also already noticed how responsive the game controls here are. Left and right move perfectly, you can jump and even duck down. The control here is good, and that is important. Control. You feel like you are in control of your character. For some reason that was hard to accomplish in the Blues Brothers. You know you're playing a good game when you are not unfairly handicapped by poor, unresponsive controls and cheap deaths. If you lose a life, it's because you screwed up or timed your moves wrong, for the most part. You can jump and attack, duck and attack, and even move a little either forward or backward in mid-jump. There are times when the game unfairly puts you in places where you have to take damage, like these vines or these ladders, which is annoying. When you are on these criping things, you are defenseless. You can't use your weapon here. And sometimes there's an enemy at the top of the ladder moving along that won't get out of your way, and you just have to end up taking damage to get past it. When you're on these vines, you just are a free target to get bopped around by these bats. And these bats are one of the most annoying enemies in this game, almost as bad as the spiky snotwads in the Blues Brothers. They come at you in an arc and you have to pull off a tricky jump attack and time it just right. Some of the platform jumps are stretched as far as they can possibly go, where the player literally has to be touching the very tip of the platform with the player's foot in order to make the jump. Oh, spiders! Watch out for the bats! Gotcha! Who's this jackwagon with the gun? I die again. Keep trying. Gotcha, you stupid spider. Snakes. I don't care about snakes. smash you with my yo-yo. Deadly yo-yo. Oh, wow. Suddenly got really popular with enemies. Oh, bats. Spider. I'm getting my fiddlesticks handed to me here. Fiddlesticks. What is a fiddlestick anyway? Almost done. Anyway, when you do attack enemies, it's satisfying when you throw your little yo-yo out and hit an enemy and it goes up with a little bleep sound and a little puff of smoke. Poof! You actually, in this game, use two different styles of gameplay. There's this platforming part where you jump around attacking enemies on platforms, and these bits where you go through the doors, and then the game switches to a first-person text adventure style of gameplay. Here you can make choices such as searching the area using a special item, moving left, right, up, or down. These areas can serve as warp zones or places where you can find new items or weapons. Now these areas are also very cryptic. If you come to an empty room, you know you need to use a hammer or your fist to hit a wall to reveal a hidden treasure vault, or a prison cell where a Goonie is locked away. This is where keys come into play. You have to use a key to open a vault or release a Goonie. Opening the vault sometimes gives you an item or weapon, and other times a vault will give you a hint or a clue as to where to find a key item or weapon or where to go next. Wow, these poor Goonies. Not only were they locked up in a small claustrophobic space, but they were walled in with cement and plaster where no one could ever hear their screams again. Those Fratellis, they sure didn't want those Goonies to be found. In fact, they wanted them to suffocate to death and die alone in darkness where their bodies would never be found again. What buttheads? Now I should mention one very annoying thing with this game. You have 3 lives. If you lose all 3, you get this screen, which I take as the Fratellis yelling at you for dying, and you can choose to continue or end. If you do continue, you will start back where you died, but the game punishes you by taking all your keys away, all the bombs and extra weapons, such as the slingshot, that you have found. Now that's some horse patootie right there. If this happens, you will end up having to backtrack and get all those weapons and grind some enemies in order to get the keys back, because you need those keys. So back to the rooms. Exploring every inch of these rooms using the on-screen command is very important, as this is where you will find the Goonies that you need to rescue, hidden items and weapons that help you progress through the game. If you miss an item that you need, such as the hammer, for instance, like I did the first time playing through, you will have to go all the way back searching around for the item you missed. This actually can be very frustrating, especially the first time you play, and I'm sure back in the day it was, unless you had a strategy guide. There are also these weird looking little dudes behind some of the doors, where you're given hints for a key item. It's also funny, you can choose to hit the person and they say this. Oh, what do you do? Oh, somebody hits me. Oh, what do you do? Now I actually really like this aspect of the game the most, as it keeps things new and interesting. The graphics and color schemes aren't so putrid that they don't make your head hurt. Each new level or zone has its own set of enemies and music which is appropriate for the mood and feel of each new area. This game for the most part is not tedious. It doesn't feel like a chore getting through each level. But on the contrary, it feels rewarding to see what it is behind each new door, and to see what next new area you will go to. It makes you feel like a true adventurer. There is some backtracking you have to do, and at times it can be confusing as to where you are or where you've been. The map helps out some, or at least lets you know where you are in the level, and where you need to go if you've been tracking yourself on the map. Finding each new Goonie gets you an extra life bar. You do eventually pick up new weapons and items. You get bombs, a slingshot, different boots, one that lets you speed up and one that makes you jump much higher. Both of these boots come in handy and make progressing through the game that much easier when you do find them. The slingshot is very useful for fighting the scorpions or any other enemy that throws projectiles. The game also has a decently paced progression from easy to hard. The beginning stage enemies are much easier and take less damage from you. And the deeper you go, the enemies get harder to destroy, and they take more damage from you. You eventually find a swimsuit that lets you go underwater, where you end up rescuing a mermaid. And that's the ending. Overall, I would say the annoying factor with this game isn't bad at all.
Well, that's the end. Those foolish Fratellis were carted off to prison, and peace could come to the Goondocks once again. Now, as far as this game's wholesome factor goes, there are some magical, mystical elements. There is a mermaid, there's killer snakes, killer spiders, pretty basic stuff that I remember growing up in the mountains, and dragons and demons towards the end as well. Obviously, this game doesn't have any blood or gore in it because in the 8-bit era, games only consisted of simple pixel sprites. Now, how well does this game measure up as far as the movie? Well, there never was a Goonies 2, so I guess it would be kind of hard to say. This game is a sequel to the Goonies 1, which was released on the Famicom in 1986, a year after which the movie was released, and that game was roughly based off the film. So if you were a kid buying this game who watched the movie, you would see a lot of familiar elements from the film. You play as Mikey, the leader of the Goonies, and the scheming Fratellis themselves are out to kidnap the Goonies, and you must rescue them. So, I don't know what's up with the mermaid. So, I know a lot of yins have been asking and waiting for a review on Wisdom Trees, Christian-themed, Bible-themed games. But don't worry, that game is in the works, and I look very much forward to, very excited to bring that review to you very soon. Now, as always, thank you for watching the Ecclesial Nerd. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. So if you'll excuse me, I have some bugs to squash with my yo-yo.